Welcome back to Orphan Khan. So we're not going to waste any time in this video other than to say that a lot of information has come up in the last week or so. In my last Curse City update I said that I was going to try and avoid doing updates for every little tiny piece of information that came out, and subsequently 2 huge pieces of information arrived. So I'm going to be mainly reporting on that today, but it's also worth me telling you that this is the second time I've actually created this content. The first time it lasted about an hour and 20 minutes, and that's obviously far too long for me to prattle on about the Cursed City. So what I've done is I've taken all of the information that we know so far and I've paraphrased it in my own words to give you a bit of an update. So we're going to start with the gameplay, which is obviously much reliant on the Blackstone Fortress system. We're going to talk about the history of Orphan Khan, and then we're going to go into the character bios. So that's the character bios for all of the heroes in the game, and then for all of the main villains. So we're going to talk about the villains individually and who they command, who they were, and anything we know like that. We're then going to move away from what has already been announced. So we're going to talk about expansions, and there's some really heavy hints, particularly on the map that's on the Curse City website, that will lend itself to information about future expansions. So we'll look at that. We'll also discuss terrain. Now, there was a theory that this thing could cost $300, which is obviously not true. And one of the main things that people were discussing was, would there be terrain for this game? Obviously there isn't. I'm not saying that there can't be some sort of terrain release later on down the line. I certainly don't think there will be, but we're going to discuss what I'm going to do for terrain for the game, because it's very, very simple. And then we're going to finish up with looking at potential prices and potential release date. Now, those aren't known yet, but there are some heavy hints as to what they could be, but we'll get onto that later. Now, it's important to remember as well that there is a lot of information packed into this video, so we are going to go at a fair clip so as I don't turn this into a massive 40-minute video. So we're going to be discussing quite a lot here, so forgive me if I race through too fast. And finally, forgive me if my voice gives out in this video. I've got some COVID symptoms and I'm waiting a test result, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty rough. So anyway, let's crack on. We'll start with gameplay. So other than the quest book and rule book, we get lots of other content which looks like a heavily modified version of Blackstone Fortress. So for example, we have a identical initiative track, and the hero stat cards are also very similar. We have very similar dice mechanics, so the destiny and activation dice, behavior tables, all those kind of things, d6s, d8s and d12s with successes and crits on them. All of those things are direct out of Blackstone Fortress. This appears to be some kind of day and night tracker. I'm assuming that you can trade and buy upgrades from merchants during the day, and then most of the combat will occur at night. Different types of enemies might behave differently at different times of the day or night as well. We can see from the previous artwork that the skeleton warriors are moving around the city in the day, but everything else appears to happen at night. There is that initiative track which will dictate when the players and the enemies go, which turn they take in each phase of the game. You can see that on the stat cards there's some cards below them called empowerment cards, so those are obviously going to be some stat upgrades or potentially some new weapons and that kind of thing. The dice that we can see here, again, very much the same as Blackstone Fortress, so you get d6s, d8s and d10s. They have varying levels of successes and crits on them, or obviously nothing, so not much has changed there either. You can see that there's tiles instead of hexes from Blackstone Fortress. However, these tiles do have squares on them, so there's also spaces for doorways and that kind of thing as well. If you look in the bottom left there, you can see Orphan Khan in peril. It has 5 spaces in it. So this might signify which main antagonists are in play, or to track phases of battle, like enemy reinforcements and that kind of thing. It could also act like a Doom track, like in Arkham Horror. This might signify that if the team doesn't complete its task within a certain time frame or number of turns, the game will get much harder. There is also 10 objective markers in the box, so we've seen 2 images of these. They're signified by a raven holding a key and a skeleton hanging that is pointing in a certain direction. I'm hoping we get different objective markers. I hope they're not duplicated, but there is obviously the chance that we'll just get 5 of each of these 2. So now we're going to move on to the lore, and we're going to start with the origins of the city. So we know from the most recent update that Ulfin Khan is an old city. It's over 300 years old, and we know that because that is the length of the Age of Chaos. We know that the city was founded in the Age of Myth and survives to this day. So originally it was known as the city of Mournhold, and it's in the heart of Shyish. It was founded by three houses, Alton, from which one of the hero characters may descend, Vosheim and Gaunt. It was a bustling metropolis and it thrived. As the Age of Myth slipped into the Age of Chaos, the city came under regular and sustained attacks from Slorn the Ravener, who was the demon prince under the command of Khorne. At the time of Mournhold's greatest time of need, an unlikely saviour arrived. The Ogre Radakar the Wolf arrived with his fleet, leading a company of Khosgari Ogres. They saved the city from the Chaos invaders, and he was heralded as the saviour of Mournhold. It is important to know that the people knew that Radakar was a vampire. He saved the city, and as soon as his help was accepted, he placed himself amongst the nobles, and the city was doomed thereafter. The city also willingly offered blood to Radakar. The articles on the Warhammer community doesn't explicitly say how this presented itself, but the Bloodborne, some of the models in the game, were likely involved. We'll get back to them later. As time progressed out of the Age of Chaos and into the Age of Sigmar, the cataclysmic event known as the Necroquake had a devastating impact on Mournhold and its citizens. Giving strength and necromantic magical power as a result of the Necroquake, Radakar and his forces swept across the Mournhold in a single night of bloodshed. Any who wouldn't bend the knee or could challenge Radakar's power were cut down. The noble dynasties were cut down, and those who willingly served Radakar were given the blood kiss, turning them into vampires. Mournhold was changed forever into Ulfin Khan. The city is now run by brutality and terror. The remaining mortals toil endlessly for their undead masters. Life is cheap, but some fight still remains. Now we're going to move on to the character bios, and we're going to start with the bad guys first. Gorslav the Gravekeeper tends the corpse gardens of Ulfin Khan. He commands the Deadwalker zombies, and the zombies he tends are staked through the back onto their tombstones. This was likely done by the citizens of Ulfin Khan to stop them from coming back as vampires. Gorslav resides in the corpse gardens. Watch Captain Halgrim betrayed the nobility of Ulfin Khan by rounding them up for Radakar to slay, but he was killed by his own men in retaliation, and his body was thrown into the storm drains, only to be raised by necromancers to command the Ulfenwatch skeleton warriors. He operates in the Varengate. Torgilius the Chamberlain is the commander of the Bat and Rat Swarms, and he is Radakar's right-hand man. He operates from the Baramark. He experiments on mortals constantly and has a particular enemy in his former colleague, Octren Glimskry, who is a hero from this game. He was once the right hand of the nobility of Ulfin Khan, but has thrown in his lot with Radakar, for whom he is his eyes and ears. He knows all of the going-ons within Ulfin Khan. Next up we've got Virkos Bloodborne. So in the image on the right, he is the guy in the middle. He is the leader of the Bloodborne. They were former nobility who pledged an oath of loyalty to Radakar and were rewarded with the Blood Kiss. They are now assassins who hunt down any who oppose Radakar's rule. They are perhaps linked to the Screaming Spires, and they likely share a bloodline with Glario van Elton III, whose image is here, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Next up we have Radakar the Wolf. He commands all of the other antagonists in the game, as well as the Khosgari Night Guard. The Ebon Citadel is his fortress. We've already heard lots about him, but it's worth mentioning that the presence of the Khosgari Night Guard probably means that they will take wounds for him in battle. This is similar to the Chaos Space Marines in Blackstone Fortress who took wounds for Obsidian Maleks. If some of the artwork that we've seen is correct, the pelt on his shoulder is of a two-headed wolf. Finally, for the enemies of Ulfin Khan, completely transformed by bloodlust, the Varskir has fully succumbed to the bestial Soulblight's curse. Little is known about the Varskir right now, but it's a lone enemy and is likely to be similar in playstyle to the dreaded Amble. It may possibly even attack undead that get too close to him. And now we move on to the Agents of Defiance. Jelson Darek was a witch hunter of the Order of Azir. Not a great deal is known about him, but we do know that he was exiled from the Order for being too extreme. Now I'm sure that we'll find out more about him in the Cursed City book. It's also been announced that there's going to be a character card comes with that book, and I think it will feature someone that will be from Jelson's past. Now there's a wizard on the cover of the book which doesn't immediately stand out as a current Age of Sigmar model, but there is a chance it could be a battle wizard. It doesn't look like any of those models. The wizard on the book carries a scythe, but it looks nothing like the scythe carrying model from those wizards. There is of course the chance that it's not a model from the current range, so it hasn't been released yet, but I'm sure we will know more soon. So Derek carries the Ardent Blade, which is a legendary blade that is featured in the 40k universe as well. He carries a stake rifle, which also fires silver bullets, and a hammer to help smash stakes into the chest of his vampiric enemies. Those stakes are made from Axion firewood, which can literally burst into flames when they hit their mark. Quel'This the Exiles is a Kurnothi hunter who carries arrows made from the branches from the Oak of Ages Past, which dates way back into the Old World. She lost her home and clan to the Soulblight vampires linked to Ulfin Khan, and despite being expressly forbidden to do so, she's gone rogue and is out for revenge. Imelda Braskov is a Knight of Azir who led the city's army in a fight against Radakar and his forces. They were crushed, but she is still loyal to her city and won't stop until Radakar and his host are vanquished. She will slay Radakar or die trying. She carries a broadsword and a dagger and is clad in some impressive plate armour. Dagnai Holdenstock is a Caradron entrepreneur with an eye to profit from the city of Ulfin Khan. He's likely linked in some way to the Van Alten Skydocks, and he's a trade commodore. The word Skydocks obviously has Caradron links, and he may also be linked to Glario Van Alten. He carries an axe and a harpoon gun. Glario Van Alten III is the last of the Van Alten dynasty. That name is also linked to the Skydocks and is very similar to one of the founding dynasties, Altern. He carries a dueling pistol and sword. He is out to destroy his three cousins who willingly accepted the Blood Kiss. I believe these cousins to be the Bloodborn, giving their noble past. Cleona Zeitingale is the last surviving member of the Cult of the Comet and a mage of Sigmar. She uses the power of Sigmar himself to cleanse the streets of vampiric filth. She tried to warn the city of the cataclysm that would befall it, but her warnings were not heeded. She carries a staff and blades of silver. She is also an expert healer. Second to last we have Octrin Glimscry. He's a former colleague of Torgilius the Chamberlain, and he studied the Realmstone Grave Sand, which concerns mortality. He knows a great deal about the realm of death and carries a staff and some of his books. It is said that his stare alone can kill. And finally, Brutog Corpse Eater is an ogre mercenary of the Gnawing Fist clan. The bio he's been given just said that he enjoys the taste of undead flesh, but given that Radakar is an ogre and there's other undead ogres in Ulfin Khan, surely there must be another link. Now I'm very certain that the Cursed City will feature future expansions, and I believe that this map holds the key to what could feature in some of those expansions. For example, I'm positive that Nighthaunt are linked to the location known as the Geistgale. And then if we look at how other parts of the game are made up, we've got Gorslav leads the zombies, and we've got Halgrim who leads the skeletons. Now I'm sure that we will probably, in a major expansion going forward, have a new leader from the Nighthaunt, which will lead a band of something like Chain Rasps. I'm very hopeful that it's not the current Chain Rasp that we've got and that we get some new ones, but I think that could feature in a future expansion. We also have other areas like the Shadowed Crypt Halls and the Clot. Maybe they could feature the Flesh Eater Courts or something like that. Moving on to terrain. So no terrain has been announced for the game, and I don't expect it to be either. I do intend to enhance the gameplay by adding some of my own. The main things I'll be using is the Sigmarite Mausoleum, as there's a number of different sized walls and fences and that kind of thing. There's also some small tombs that will likely fit between tiles. And I will also be using the doorways from the Warcry Catacombs set. That will enhance the look of the board as well. I'll also likely be creating some scratch built terrain, so some extra walls in case the ones from the mausoleum don't fit and things like that, and I'll do a video on that after the game's released. Okay, so let's finish up with release dates and price. Now none of this is known, so this is just me guessing, but we've got a really huge amount of details now, so I think that the release date is going to be very, very close. I think that it will be out in our hands by the end of March, so I reckon it will go on pre-order on either the 13th or 27th. And that still fits within the bi-weekly release schedule that they've got at the moment. I reckon there'll be a 2-week pre-order, and I reckon price-wise we can totally forget those $300 rumours. I think that in the UK the price is going to be between £110 and £125. I don't think they're going to go over that mark. Now that's all I've got for now, but I'll be back soon with more Curse City content. There's a link to my Curse City Facebook group in the description, as well as an affiliate link for Element Games. So if you usually purchase from Element, please use my link and you'll still get your full discount, but you also really help out the channel. I'll also be releasing a similar video regarding Kill Team on Saturday morning, just in time for the Pariah Nexus pre-order. If you're interested in that or any other Curse City updates, please subscribe, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Catch you later.